Now we are talking about urban traffic management through access rights. So who goes in and who stays out? I would like to welcome from B-Mobile, can I have a round of applause for Wouter van der Wielen? Wouter, great for having you here.
Thanks for having me.
B-Mobile, I remember asking your colleague who talked to us yesterday afternoon, and I asked, so where's your booth?
Yeah.
And your colleague said, we are everywhere. Why did he say that?
Because we are everywhere with our products, I think.
Yeah,
With our
and
solutions.
he told. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
No,
That's
fine,
not
that's fine. You also gave him the best nickname ever. It's gonna follow him to the end of the earth. But anyways, please continue. Yeah.
Because B-Mobile, you are sponsoring the theatre.
Yeah.
Right?
We
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. And you are findable through the app again. So just look at Wouter van der Wielen, van de Wielen, and you can
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
That's where you can find me.
Wouter, I asked you, can we ask questions after or during the presentation? And
Please do
please
during.
do
Yeah.
during. So if you have a question, I'm over there.
Yeah.
I have a microphone. Please raise your hand, stand up, make yourself known, and I'll come along with a microphone.
Yeah.
That's
Look,
okay for you.
Afterwards is also fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
definitely
Okay.
during. Yep.
Wouter, take it away.
Thank you very much. So, urban traffic management via access rights. First, a small table of contents. I've been a consultant before, so I like some structure. We're going to talk about the current situation in cities today, and then restricting access via access rights. And yeah, we see that in three possible ways: for stationary vehicles, people arriving, and then the end goal, all mobility in urban areas you can control, and how you can do that via an urban access control center. But let's first talk about situation. Currently, cities today are a bit in a difficult, in a catch-22 situation almost. On the one hand, we expect from them a future-proof vision and policy. For instance, we want urban mobility to be more sustainable. We want to have less congestion, less traffic jams. We want them to reduce air pollution, and we want them to promote alternative forms of transport. And we also want them to become more digital, so that, yeah, for instance, we can pay via our smartphone or even the car. That's on the one hand. This all sounds very good, but on the other hand, reality kicks in. So we also expect them to be realistic. If I am a local merchant and I have a shop, I want customers to be able to visit me. As a city, we do not want to exclude certain groups. Also, let's face it, there are some budget constraints, and an access right like parking is revenue. But there's also COVID, which had a huge impact on cities' budgets. What we also notice is that access right or managing urban mobility can become polarized. Everybody has an opinion on it. If you launch a new initiative as a city, you can expect a huge amount of input and even criticism from your stakeholders. And there's also a scattered landscape if you want to implement something new. So this is a bit the situation where the cities are in. On one hand, sounds very good. On the other hand, very hard to implement. But what are the means that a city has to solve this? One of the means are urban access rights. And these are all different use cases where you give an access to someone who wants to access your city, and we've grouped them in different levels. The lowest level, the easiest level to implement, is for vehicles that are stationary in the city center. All mobility that is standing still must pay an access right, typically a parking tariff. Then people arriving at a city center, a bit more difficult to implement, and then you can further steer mobility. For instance, give priority to public transport. And then we can go to a third level, maybe the end goal, not there for all cities, but you really control all city center mobility via access rights. For instance, implement tolling. So that's how we divided the use cases. I'm not sure if you agree, but this is how we see access rights. And let me explain that a bit further with concrete examples. First one is stationary. Think about access rights via parking. I know we are here at Intertraffic and we see all these cool new features, all these cool talks about drones and solutions, but still, a tariff can be a very, very important and good mean to steer mobility. Uh, I've talked about my boss about these slides, and he said, "Oh, you're not going to talk about parking tariffs again." But I think we should, because to give you an example of a Belgian city, Oudenaarde, they had a train station. And next to the train station, there was a car park. And it was always free, and it has been free for years. But yeah, as time grew, the car park became full. So what they did is they just asked €1 to park there during the day. And it had a huge impact. People drove to other train stations. People took the bike. People didn't take the train anymore. And just something as simple as increasing a tariff with €1 can have a huge impact on urban mobility. So we can talk about all these fancy things, but we should not forget about the basics. And what we also see today is, the curb or the car park spots are being more and more used. Are we getting less, or are we getting away from that typically parking spot thinking? For instance, this is a photo that I took. On the right-hand side, you can see my house. It's one of the white ones. And this is what the city of Ghent does. They say during the summer, all car spots disappear. We just roll out fake grass, and there are no car spots anymore. You have to play there, but you can't drive through it anymore. So this is what we see today, access rights via parking. If we think about the future, where we want to go to, is to go even further and more advanced tariffs. For instance, freight in your city. Say you can only park during certain time frames, so they really can control when all these vans drive around. You can also maybe set a lower tariff for an electric van. And we should maybe also move away from the focus on visitor parking. We now see residents, they get a permit, but maybe we should just also ask them to pay at a very low rate, but that they are really aware, and that we urge them to move their vehicle and to not take up that valuable space in the city center. And then we can use that data as well. If we see there are less residents parked in a city center, okay, maybe we can then move the freight vans to that area, because there are spots available that they don't take up other space, and traffic goes more efficiently. And what we also see, I already gave a small example of that, we go towards full curbside management. It's not just seen as like a revenue source, a parking spot in the city, but really as a space and a time, with very, very, very advanced rules. And maybe going even away from mobility. In Ghent, you can reserve a parking spot if you have a restaurant or a bar for 2 months during summer, so that you can increase your seating capacity. So this was the first group of access right for stationary vehicles. If you then look at mobility and traffic arriving in the city center, there are also very interesting things happening there today. For instance, classical example, a low emission ticket. Polluting vehicles must pay to obtain access. Implementing a low emission zone can be a bit tricky, so there are also alternatives where we don't ask for an access right, but we nudge hybrid vehicles to not use their internal combustion engine, but to instead use their battery. And we also see new business models. There are now a lot of studies that have come out and that prove that low emission zone works. So you, for instance, pay your partner for the amount of pollution that was reduced in your city center. Another access right for mobility arriving in the city is that you can receive priority at a traffic light or at a bollard. For instance, if you have a diesel truck, it arrives at the city center, and I think it's around €3 for a diesel truck, fully loaded, to start driving again. So if the diesel truck pays €2 to have a green light, it can just safely drive through. It's extra revenue for the city, it's less air pollution for the inhabitants, and the trucking company saves money. They're just a nice use case. So those are the things we see today. Then again, if you can be a bit more ambitious and look at the future, yeah, there will be other forms of mobility arriving at the city center. And then you as a city must be able to set rules for them. For instance, set rules for autonomous vehicles and to be able to guide freight traffic. There is now the Amsterdam Drone Week. This is where I got the example from. But then you as a city should be able to set rules. A drone is only allowed to fly in this zone. It has to follow this route. It sounds very advanced, and I just checked out of the window this morning, but I didn't see any drones flying over Amsterdam, so we're not there yet, but we already see it. Cities asking it, being ready for the future and saying, please take into account that we not only want to set tariffs for parking or for low emission zones, but also for drones in the future. And then we get to the third, the most advanced access rights management. And that's like for all urban mobility. And what we see there today is that, that today there is one use case there, and that's city tolling. City tolling is where all external costs are factored in. It's the most fair one. And then ideally you have very advanced tariffs. For instance, an electric vehicle doesn't have to pay much. A diesel-powered vehicle have to pay a bit more. And then a trucking vehicle has to pay the most. What you think will happen, or you see in the future, is that there will no need to have like a full ALPR camera for urban mobility management. Right now, only large cities can implement a city tolling or even a low emission zones. But why should we not enable smaller cities to do this? Today, you already have scan cars, parking operators, even have city constables in some cities who are allowed to issue fines. So let's use those. And they can check a parked vehicle, but they can also check vehicles driving around and check if they, for instance, have bought a low emission zone ticket. So I have now talked a lot about all the different things, all the different access rights that you as a city can issue to people visiting or driving around on your territory. The thing is, and things that I started with, is that it's a scattered landscape. So we should combine these technologies in what we call an urban access control center, so that you as a city have an overview of all the things that you can implement and can play with them. And this is what we at B-Mobile call the Urban Access Control Center. And this is how we see it. The authorities can set the rules and have access to reporting via user interface to a control center. And then all these different use cases, all these different things can be combined. Tolling, traffic priority, low emission zones, parking, so that they can be communicated towards drivers, and also enforcement can check them. The question is though, why? Well, first, I think we should enable cities. Today, it's very, very hard to implement a low emission zone, to go to city tolling for a multitude of reasons. But if you have a control center, you at least have the technology there to go ahead and implement it. A personal story, the photo that I showed you before about the access rights being disabled and no parking anymore in my street, I hated it. I was so mad at the city for saying, you can't park in your street anymore. And I hated it the first year. And I hated it the second year. I was like, but what if I have groceries? What if I have a kid? How will I be able to live here? But now, I absolutely love it. I would defend it to the end of the earth. So I think if you have like a visionary or an idea in a city, you should be able to implement it. And also, if you have all these data points together, you can communicate, you can show reports, the air pollution has reduced, restaurants can have more seating capacity, so that you can defend the decisions you have taken as a city. And the other thing that I talked about is to be like ready for the future, control future mobility. Autonomous vehicles, according to a lot of people here, they are coming, and they are coming rather soon. Maybe set rules for them. Say, for instance, how much distance they should keep from one another. Maybe if there was an accident with a specific vehicle type, you don't want these vehicles to drive around in your city anymore, so that you are ready for the future. And then if you have an urban access control center, I think with the data and with the rules available, new use cases will come up. If you implement tolling, city tolling for driving on the roads, maybe you should also implement tolling for driving over an expensive bridge. And maybe you should communicate towards drivers when the bridge is open or when there is a traffic accident on the way to the bridge. So they can do all these things via the control center. These are the things that I just thought of for a city center, but yeah, feel free to think of more. You're all very quiet. I'm not sure if you agree with the things that we display here. So let's do a recap. Will it work? I started out with a difficult situation that cities are in today. On the one hand, we expect them to be future-proof. On the other hand, yeah, they have to face reality and set realistic policies. Will an urban access control center solve all these things for them? Probably not all of them, but we can do a lot. We can future-proof it. The rules that we set, we can make them digitally available. It's possible to implement sustainable policies and to check out on the results. Does it work to implement a low-emission zone? Or maybe you should go one step further and implement city tolling. An urban access control center, at first, will make your city less accessible, of course, because people have to pay an access right. Some people won't come anymore. But what we see there is that you can give flanking measures. For instance, some cities give up to 5,000 euros in car vouchers if you have an old polluting vehicle. It will definitely help you to resolve the budget constraints. In the polarized debate, it can also help you because you can report and show the results. But if I think about myself, the first year I was mad, so yeah, not sure there. And yeah, it will definitely help you in a scattered landscape so that you can implement the rules that you want to implement. That was it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So, do you have any questions? Yes. I'm going to reach over with the microphone. If you could introduce yourself as well, please.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Hans from Estonia, and
Closer by.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a little bit concern regarding this. It's a good idea, but how does it affect concerns of segregation of the wealth? Because currently, for example, electric cars are definitely more expensive than the petrol or diesel ones, so it kind of already makes the segregation of wealth bigger, because wealthier people can access more thanks to the taxes, tolls, and etc.
Yeah, agreed.
Interesting.
100%.
Thank you.
That's what I was saying also before. Like, I've not put it in bold, accessible cities. I've put it. It can make your city less accessible for certain groups. There, you have to think about what I said, flanking measures to really support these inhabitants, for instance, who are less rich. Public transport, make it cheaper, make it faster. If you have access rights and less mobility, you can make it faster. You can also check in reports what the throughput time is of public transport, see if it works. Give a, I don't know the word in English, but it's like a voucher or a code.
Sorry?
Een schrootpremie.
Schrootpremie.
Oh
yeah, that's difficult.
Yeah. Anyone does?
Yeah, schroot is a kind of bad car, right? Schroot.
Yeah. And if you prove that you have got rid of you got rid of your bad car and it was like it's not driving on the roads of your city anymore, then someone gets a rebate for public transport or for buying a new car. But it's a valid concern.
Yeah, good. Thank you for the question. Anyone else with a question? Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question here. Hi, I'm Diana from Medellin, Colombia. Which cities in the world do you think are successful cases, like to benchmark that have implemented this kind of solutions?
I think as a city, that's a bit the story that I tried to tell today. Let me go quickly back. You have to choose what you want to implement. Do you want to restrict just stationary vehicles? Or do you want to go for all city center mobility? We've been to Singapore, and in Singapore, it's perfect, but also there are so many people living there on such a small area that, yeah, you have to go to level 3 of urban access rights for everything. We have a smaller city close to where I live, it's called Zottegem. Yeah, they don't need level 3, they don't need to implement city tolling. It depends on your needs and how many vehicles drive around.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to
Yeah.
run around. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, you mentioned Singapore.
Yeah.
Is there any city in Latin America, for example, that you know is really,
I should know one, but I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry?
Yeah. I don't. I should know one, but I don't.
But that's fine. That's fine. You're not an encyclopedia. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah.
So if you if you want to meet up later on, perhaps you could
Yeah,
share
that
that.
would be
It'll be
great.
interesting
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, it would be.
For Southern America, right? Of Latin America. Latin America. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So you can find each other here or through the app as well. Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Anyone else with a question? If not,
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course you can ask
Do
a
you
question.
agree with how we see it in the future? Like you start with level 1, you go to level 2, and then level 3 on as a city implementing policies? First you start with a parking tariff, then you go to arriving, and then the last level is control all mobility? There's someone.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I didn't see you because of the lights. Could you introduce yourself as well, please? I'll give you the microphone. Keep it close so that we can hear you properly.
I'm a student at Windesheim, and isn't there like a reason to also have like a number 4, for instance? So like
No more traffic.
like less traffic at all, like so that you like implement something that there's just less traffic at all in the city.
I think access rights will help you
Thank you.
to have less traffic and to steer traffic and have the traffic that you want. We never want to go to no traffic, but you have to just see what works. If you want to really reduce traffic, go for all city center mobility, implement tolling, set the tariffs very high,
Sorry.
and then you won't have traffic anymore.
Thank you for the question. I'm asking many speakers the same question, and that is, you have something to share, right? You have a product, but as a road operator, I can imagine I need all these products to work together to reach my end user, to reach me driving in my car, so I know whether there's an ambulance coming, whether there's a fire in a tunnel, whether I can park somewhere. How do you work together? I mean, is it kind of open?
Yeah, we have an open platform
Open platform.
that we work together with everyone.
Yeah.
And today we already do it for parking. We already do it for low emission zones. But of course, we have to work with a car manufacturer, with someone who gathers all the car manufacturing data, or
Yeah.
sometimes we do that as well.
Yeah.
And then we display it towards the end user in
Yeah.
our apps.
It's a whole ecosystem
Yeah.
we're working. Can
Yeah.
you just help me up? Can you just,
Yeah,
thanks.
I
'cause
can.
yeah, thank you. Great. Thanks for answering that question. Yeah. For now, I'm going to close this off. Thank you for listening. Thank you for looking at us through our recordings. And a big hand for you for presenting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So great. I'm going to talk to the... You can stay put, that's fine. You can stand here, that's fine. We're talking about... This is about urban transportation, about urban issues. Our next speaker will tell us about economically, environmentally friendly intersection controls. So that is also an urban issue we're going to talk about. So if you're interested in intersection controls, stay put. If you think that's not for me, go ahead and enjoy the rest of the show. Have a good day. Thank you.